Welcome everybody. And can you see my screen all right?
Can see it well. Welcome to
Awesome.
you.
And I went ahead and opened up the mics for everybody today. I would love if you guys would pop in and ask questions as we go through. I recognize a handful of the names here, so I know some of you are more regulars and some of you might be new to Mylio Photos. So welcome everybody. This is our Getting Started with Mylio Photos webinar. And we cover the very basics of getting up and running with this application. So let's go ahead and jump into the presentation today. What we're going to cover is what Mylio Photos is, how to create an account and why you need one, installing and setting up the software, adding a few photos, adding some devices and getting things synced up, a quick tour of how to browse your library and find things, and then how you can learn more about our software. As we go through, like I said, if you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask them. There's also the Q&A pod, the chat, which I'll keep an eye on, and we'll have some open Q&A at the end as well. So I'm here to help you learn. My name is Angela Andrew. I'm a product evangelist for Mylio Photos. I'm also a fine art photographer and a photo educator. I've been photographing for probably, let's see, what year is it? 15, 20 years, somewhere in that range. Became really passionate about it about 12 to 15 years ago. And as I learned more photography, I learned the best way to learn and to learn software and managing your photos and things like this was to teach, because it really forces you to get in, dig in, and learn all of those details and all those little facets. And I love helping other photographers find their photos, keep things organized, and learn how to use the various editing tools out there. If you've been to any of my other earlier webinars or any of the webinars I've done elsewhere, you'll know that I'm very passionate about photo editing. So being able to use external editors and things like that with Mylio Photos is a lot of fun. And if you have questions about other applications and how they work with Mylio, please don't hesitate to ask, because I've probably tried it. So usually I am joined by my co-host, JC Figueroa, but he is on vacation today. So you guys have to deal with just me. But if you end up getting in touch with our support team, he is the lead of our support team and they're great. They are incredible at handling all of the different technical questions that come their way. And I'll make sure you have the resources to ask questions of them and get in touch with them later if you need it. But a few things to know about the presentation. I mentioned earlier we have the Q&A pod, and then I did go ahead and unmute mics today. So if you could keep your mic muted unless you're asking a question, that would be awesome, but please feel free to unmute and ask. You can also use that Q&A pod, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. And I do want to ask you guys a quick question. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And I just want to get an idea of who's here joining us today and your experience level with Mylio Photos. If you could take a moment and answer these couple of questions, I would really appreciate it. I'll give that a moment here. And it just kind of lets me know kind of where to tailor this presentation as well, because I do like to make sure I'm here for you and that making sure you guys know what you need. Let's see here. All right. So most people here have been using the program for a while. We don't have any super newbies. So you know what I can do is I'm actually going to kind of gloss over that initial setup bit, and then we can dive into some of the other aspects of Mylio Photos. So let's see here. People need help with adding photos, syncing to devices, or something else. If you answered something else, please make sure you either unmute and let me know, or pop that into the Q&A pod, and I'll do my best to answer that for you. So let me go ahead and end this poll. You guys can take a look there and see what the results are if you like. All right. This is being recorded, so if we move too fast through something and you want to rewatch, we will be posting usually within about 48 hours, the recording, and you can find that at community.mylio.com under topics and webinar replays. And if you have questions, feel free to comment on those posts or send me a message directly in the community. I always love hearing from you guys. Again, I'm here to make your lives easier and ensure that you're successful with Mylio Photos. So since most of you here have been using this product for a while, you probably have a pretty good idea of what Mylio Photos is and what it does. And what we want to do is empower you, all of these everyday photographers, to get all of your media into one secure and connected library. What that means is turning your computers, phones, tablets, external drives into a system for managing your lifetime of memories. We want to make sure you're able to bring in all of your photos from all of the different sources and make them accessible in a single library that you can then access from any device that you have. The way we do this is by making you install the software on every single device that you have. We can fit very large libraries even onto a smaller laptop or phone. It has sophisticated image search, facial recognition, GPS, and more, a lot of really powerful search features to help you find images when you need them. Because if you can't find what you need, is it really actually even there? You want to be able to get to them when you're looking for it. So I talked a little bit earlier about editing. Mylio Photos has some basic editing tools built into the software, but if you're really into photo editing like me, it works brilliantly with just about every other app out there. If you're a Lightroom and Photoshop user, if you're using On1, Topaz, Radiant, Luminar, all of these work really, really well with Mylio Photos. You can get full access to your library on all of your devices without the need for an internet connection or paying additional cloud data fees. Using a cloud service is optional. You can add that in there, but it is not required. And Mylio Photos also has the effect of protecting your photos from device loss or device failure or loss. And what that means is it's not going to do backups that protect you from accidental deletions. It doesn't protect against human error, but it does help you if your house burns down and you have an offsite backup. It helps you if you lose your cell phone. It helps you if your laptop gets stolen from the coffee shop. You know, it does give you these multiple copies of your images and lets you protect and make sure that your images in your lifetime of memories are preserved. So that's really important and really powerful. So let's go ahead and talk very briefly about setting up a Mylio account. So I know most of you here have been using Mylio for, at least a month. So you've probably already set up your Mylio account. And the reason that you have to have an account to get started is because Mylio Photos is an application and a service. And this is also why we charge a subscription fee rather than a lifetime license, is because we have our application, which gets installed on each one of your devices, but we also provide a service that allows those devices to talk together. And in order to maintain that and keep that up to date with the latest encryption, the latest security, and make sure we're caught up with compatibility with all the latest operating systems, support the most recent cameras, things like that, that all takes investment, and that's why we charge a subscription fee. So that's why an account is needed, is that's what creates the connection between your different devices. When you log in on your computer, you log in on your phone, that allows those devices to talk to each other. So when you go to your Mylio account, there's a few things here that you're going to want to pay attention to. And this is going to mylio.com and then clicking on the login up in the upper right. You can download Mylio Photos to a new computer if you get one. You can go to devices and manage all of the devices that are attached to your account. And you can change things like your email and your password. So there's some good resources to have in case you need to get to them. All right. And then installing the software, again, I'm going to guess that most of you have gotten it up and running on at least one machine. Most people, that's going to be, the first machine is going to be either a Windows or a Mac computer. So what you're going to do is go to that download on the website and then locate either the Mylio_x64 or the Mylio.dmg file in your downloads folder. Double click it and walk through the instructions that are on screen to get that installed. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory, but if you run into any issues, you can always reach out to our support team at support@mylio.com, and they're very, very responsive. So let's talk about initial setup tips. The first thing we're going to look at, let me just jump over to the Mylio app and we'll go walk through this. And I do see we have a couple of questions that popped up. David says, I'm not currently using it. And by the way, the chat is disabled. Well, that's interesting. I'm very sorry about that. I'll have to check my settings for the next one, but hopefully you can reach us here in the Q&A. And then I do believe I have everybody enabled to unmute and ask questions verbally if you prefer to do that. So David, you can do that. Did I skip over any of the install stuff faster than made sense to you? If not, just go ahead and pop another thing into the Q&A and that's fine. All right, let's go here. All righty. All right, so when you first install Mylio Photos, this is going to be the screen you see, your welcome screen. You're going to click the next button and you're going to use the account that you created on the website where you downloaded the software. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my email address and go ahead and get logged in. And you're going to go through a series of screens that walk you through what it means to make certain choices here as you install the software. So Mylio Photos does not store your images. Those images are stored on hardware that you own, but that makes them available in Mylio Photos no matter which device you're using. So let's go ahead and keep going through here. You manage them, you use Mylio to manage where your photos are stored. You can move things around using the Mylio app. And the first thing we do here is set up your first device. So let me jump back over the presentation here real quick. And the first question we're going to have to ask is, where do we want our Mylio library folder to be located? So the Mylio library folder is the default location for your future imports. Now, this doesn't mean you can't import things to a different location than your default. Every time you do an import into Mylio Photos, you'll be given the choice of where do you want these images to go. So it's not the end of the world if you choose, not maybe someplace that doesn't have enough storage or as much storage as you'd like. You can always import your images to different locations. But for the first setup, what we recommend is choosing a Mylio library folder that's on a place that has a fair bit of storage and gives you room to grow. So for most people, that's going to be either an external hard drive or a desktop computer that has a lot of storage. Either one is fine. You can even choose the default location, which is going to be your root folder on your computer. That's acceptable as well. You just want to know that that's going to be the default location for every picture you bring in the future, but you always have the option to change that. All right. The next question you're going to be asked is, should you create an existing or should you use an existing folder or create a new one? When you choose an existing folder, choosing an existing folder is the right choice if your media library is already organized. So if you're a Lightroom user and you don't want to move your photos from where they're located, but you want to also have those photos in Mylio Photos, you'll want to choose an existing folder. If you're brand new to organizing your photos, creating a new folder is sometimes the better choice because that gives you a point for consolidating everything. And as you go through and add media to Mylio Photos, you can pull everything into that folder if you choose and get it organized and cleaned up. So there's a couple of different options. It's up to you how you want to do this. For today's demo, I'm going to create a new folder on a blank external hard drive. And let's see here, I'm going to do create a new folder, hit the next button, and I'm going to do let me change the location. So we'll go ahead and choose my folder location, and I'm going to choose this one that I called Mylio Vault. Now this is just an empty hard drive that I made the title of Mylio Vault. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder and call this, let's see here, Angela's Pictures. There we go. And I'm going to choose open. So now I have my Mylio Vault drive, Angela's Pictures, and I'm going to say looks good. And that's going to create that Mylio library folder on that external drive. So good, congratulations, I got it. And what it's telling me here is, do you want to install the sample library? It knows that I'm brand new to Mylio Photos. It also knows that I haven't installed any photos yet. So it gives me the option to install the sample library. The good news about the sample library is it gives you a way to see what an organized library can look like. It lets you play with it. And then it's very, very easy to remove. So once you start having your own photos coming in, you can uninstall the sample library and it removes all traces. And it's a very, very clean install and uninstall. And you can also uninstall and reinstall it several times. So if you want to bring it back in once in a while to see what that looks like and then get rid of it, you can do that. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and say yes, install sample library. You can see up here in the upper right that Mylio is working and bringing in some images. And it'll give me a little tour here of what's going on. So you can monitor activity. It shows you where you can add more media. And also directs you to the dashboard, which is a great place to go for seeing what's going on with Mylio, seeing what devices you have connected, and getting some suggestions of things that you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click done. And it's telling me the sample library is now installed. It is really that fast. And now if I go over to all photos, you can see that my library has been populated with these sample images. If I go over to the folders view, here under shared content, there's a folder here for this sample library. And I can play with these to my heart's content. I can move them around. I can put them in albums and do all sorts of things. And then when I'm ready to be rid of them, all I need to do is go up to the help menu and choose remove sample library. For now, I'm going to leave it alone. And let's add some photos. So let's jump back over to the presentation. And like I said, we went ahead and created a very new folder with nothing in it. So other than the sample library, my Mylio Photos is empty. We talked a bit about the sample library already, and it lets you experiment if you're not ready to pull in any of your own images. So feel free to download that, play, tag things, move things around, and then when you're done, go ahead and remove it. Let's go ahead and take a quick little tour here so you guys know where the basic parts of Mylio Photos are. And David's asking, how does this work with photos on Apple devices? That is a great question, David. It works really, really well. You can add Apple Photos from your computer. You can also add it when you install Mylio Photos on your iPhone or an iPad. And you can install it on and connect it on all of those devices simultaneously. Mylio Photos knows which images have already been brought in and which ones haven't. So it'll always be looking at all of those devices to see if there's any new images to bring into your Mylio Photos library. All you have to do from the computer is go to the plus button, add media from photos for Mac OS, and go ahead and accept permissions here. And I'm not sure that I have a photos library set up on this user on this computer, but it walks you right through it and it brings in all of those images from Apple Photos. It's a one-way transfer. So you can, once things are brought into Mylio Photos, you can delete them from Apple Photos and they'll stay in Mylio. You can make changes to the ones in Mylio and it's not going to affect what happens on the Apple Photos side.
One thing I can add to this Apple Photos thing, Angela, people that are coming from Apple Photos, it's kind of a change to go to Mylio, and it's a very welcome change because finding things is so much easier. And one thing I can advise you is don't try to keep two libraries of photos. It will really get you in trouble eventually. One day you're going to be editing in one place and you're going to think you're in the other, and then you're going to think you lost your edits. To give you an example just from what I do, and this is personal, it's just a path I took. The Photos app on my telephone is empty. And when I shoot photos on the phone, or I shoot photos on my big camera and I bring them into my phone, so I have a safe copy until I get everything back to my computer. I bring them into my computer and then I again empty my Apple Photos once I know they're across, and it makes it so much easier. And you always know what your new photos are because they're in Apple Photos and they're not in Mylio.
Yeah, so that is a great point. There are some pros and cons to cleaning out your Apple Photos library once they're into Mylio Photos. I've actually chosen not to do that because there are some things that I like about Apple Photos that I like to keep using once in a while. That's a very personal choice. Let me go ahead and pull up my browser here really quick, and I want to point you to the manual. And there is an article in here on how to free up space on your phone. And what this does is it cleans out your Apple Photos or your Android photos once everything is securely backed up to Mylio. So let's just go up to free up space and free up space on the camera roll and media library. And this will walk you through the steps of freeing up that space. So once you have Mylio Photos installed on your phone and Mylio has had a chance to ingest all of those Apple Photos or Android photos, you can use this free up space option to automatically remove all already backed up pictures from your Apple Photos library and keep your Apple Photos library, spick and span clean and have everything secure and accessible through Mylio Photos. So that is an option and it works beautifully. So for me though, the reason I don't use this is that on my iPhone and on my iPad, there's widgets that you can put on your home screen. And unfortunately, we don't have one for Mylio Photos, but what it does is it pulls up little smart albums of memories. And they're just fun. It's nothing that is earth shattering. And if I lost it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but they're just fun things that pop up and I can see pictures of my pets or pictures of yummy things that I've eaten or trips that I've taken. And it just pops it there on the home screen, and it's really easy to get to. So that's one reason I haven't removed and done this free up space on my iPhone, but it is definitely personal choice. And Mark makes a great point that if you are maintaining two different catalogs, you're maintaining two catalogs, and it can get a little hairy at times, and you don't necessarily remember where those edits are if you edited in one and not the other, and so forth. So he makes a very, very good point. All right. Lucia asks, how do you know when they're completely downloaded from your Apple phone? That is a great question. So one way to do that is to go into the dashboard and into devices. And right now I don't have a phone listed on this account, but if I did, it would show up here as a separate device card. And you can see the check mark here means that these are fully backed up. So if you click on the question mark, the check mark means that they are in sync. If they're sending or receiving, or they need to sync, you're going to see some of these different icons. And then you can also check your sync panel over here on the right, expand devices here, and see what's in sync. Now it's saying my Mylio Vault wants originals, so that's why this is in yellow here, but that's just because these are the sample library and I haven't downloaded the originals. You can if you want to. I don't see the point in downloading originals for the sample library, but you certainly can, but that's why those are showing right now as missing. So. And then, Lucia, if you're interested in getting a new iPhone, or if you're someone who is, itching to get that new iPhone 14, I just got mine last night. And the transition process from my old iPhone to my new one was amazingly seamless. You basically put your two phones next to each other, you sign in with your Apple ID, and it transfers everything over. Just make sure that your current iPhone, your old one, is backed up either using the iCloud or you're using iTunes to back it up locally to your computer. So you have a full backup of the phone, not just your photos. And then everything else is taken care of for you. It was so seamless and so easy. It took probably 3 hours or so for everything to transfer and for all of my apps to get updated and downloaded, but it was a beautiful, easy process. So. All right, and Mark got his yesterday too. Congratulations. It's fun. All right, so let's take a quick tour here of Mylio Photos for those who are new, and so that way you can get a feel of where things are located. So if you want to see every photo that you've brought in, you can go to the All Photos view. Now you can double click on an image to view it full screen. You have a film strip here at the bottom, which you can turn off. That is up here in the More menu. And you can just turn off the film strip if you want to have your photo as a larger view. We can even hide the details panel over here on the right, and that way you get a full screen view of your image. Then when you want to go back, you can hit the back button and go back to the grid. If you want to make the grid larger or smaller, there's a zoom bar here, and this just makes that grid view larger or smaller depending on your preference. And I think that pretty much covers the All Photos view. If you want to change the sort order, that's also up here in the More menu. You can change the sort. There's a couple of different grid styles. Annotations are what's showing here on the image. So you can see we have a purple tag and a GPS pin. You can change those annotations that show on the individual images and so forth. So that's just a quick overview of what you get in the All Photos view. Calendar is one of my favorites because if you're somebody who finds images based on when they were taken, the calendar is going to be your best friend. So you can scroll through and see all of the years of your life on the calendar. And you'll see that some of these have these little bars and dots. You can set up events so you can quickly get to images from specific events in your life. And if you scroll back, you can bring in scanned family photos, older scanned prints, slides, etc., and go way, way back. We also have at the beginning here a category called undated. If we go into that, these are images that don't have a date. If you expand the details panel and look under info, you'll see that the date created says undated. You can change this by clicking on the 3 dots and choosing a month or a year, a season, a decade, undated, or you can scroll back up and put in a full timestamp if you know exactly when that was taken. So there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with your photos. And one thing I like to do with that undated category is this for me is kind of my to-do. When I look at the calendar and I'm like, yeah, I have a little bit of time to organize my photos, I can go into that category and start doing some research and finding out when certain things were taken. And sometimes I might only know the decade. Sometimes I might know it down to the minute, and I can put in a full timestamp. But whatever you do, you can put it in there and then it'll show in the appropriate place on your calendar, which is pretty cool. So I have things in there from my parents' wedding, when my grandmother was a kid, like that. My library goes way, way, way back. So it's a lot of fun to explore. Now, if you're someone who finds your photos based on where they were taken, you can use GPS metadata to find these photos. So most pictures that come out of a cell phone are going to be already tagged with GPS data. And a lot of other cameras come with GPS tagging built in. Now, if you have a mirrorless camera or DSLR that doesn't have GPS tagging, or maybe you have it turned off because it's a battery hog, that would be me, you can always manually add GPS information to your photos. So it's actually really, really easy. If we go over here to the all photos view or any other view, you can go to folders or albums or so forth. Let's see, let's find an image here that doesn't have GPS information. You can tell because it doesn't have this little pin. And then I can go over to the map tab here on the right. And let's say I know this was taken in Sacramento. I can just grab this image and drag it onto the map. It's going to say, hey, is this the right location? I can say yes or no. And then that adds that GPS information to that photo. And you can do this with entire groups of photos. I've done this with groups of images that I've taken on trips way back before I even, before smartphones were a thing. So I can see on the map where I've been, which is kind of fun. Like if you look at the map and you go, wow, all these places I visited, but you know what? I apparently need to visit those middle states a little bit more. There is some cool stuff there, and I want to go visit there. So you can fill in some of those areas on the map based on where you have your pictures already taken. So finding things on the map is a lot of fun. The next really powerful section is the people view. And this lets you tag people in your life and add names to the various faces. So Mylio Photos has amazing facial recognition technology. And it's going to go through as you bring in photos, analyze those photos, find faces. And if you've already tagged people who look similar, it's going to automatically group them together. So for instance, you can see here on Carol, there's a little question mark here. This means that we've already tagged some images of Carol, but then there's already a few here that we haven't confirmed yet that Mylio is like, I'm pretty sure that these are Carol. So we can go ahead and go into that collection, and you can see here at the top, this one has markings, whether you can accept it or reject it. Same with this one here. So you can go through very quickly and easily and tag all of the people who are important to you. Another way to do that is to go into the untagged category. And then over on the right-hand side, click the batch tagging icon. And this is again going to group together those similar faces that haven't been tagged. And then you can go through and be like, all right, are all of these Colleen? Yes, I do believe all of these are Colleen. Actually, I think this is her brother. So we can say no. Well, let's just go ahead and change this one. This is going to be Michael. But the rest of these, I'm pretty sure are Colleen. And we can just go here to the top. It says Colleen, approve, and there you go. And it goes to the next one. So you can very quickly and easily go through hundreds or thousands of images and tag all of your favorite people. It also becomes kind of like a game. I've gotten in my personal library, this untagged section down to around 100 people, 100 faces. And a lot of those that are left are ones that I'm like, do I want to tag them? Do I not want to tag them? Or I still need to talk to various people in my family and find out who's in these scanned photographs. So again, it's another to-do list for your images. If you're looking for another to-do, back here on the map, I forgot to mention, down in the bottom corner, was there a moment ago? Let's see here. Usually there's a little button here at the bottom that says untagged, and you can use that to find images that need to be tagged and add geotags to those images. Albums and folders. I'm going to start with folders. Folders physically represent what's on your hard drive and in your file system. So if you have a folder here called Angela's Pictures, that folder actually exists on a hard drive. Right now it's empty. You'll remember when we installed the software, we created that new folder. So we have this empty folder here that represents the physical folder on my hard drive. Albums, on the other hand, are like playlists for your photos. you can take a single photo and put it into multiple albums. So if you have some beautiful photos of birds that you took on vacation, you can put them into your birds album and you can put them on your vacation album. And a lot of these albums, you'll notice, have multiple albums within them. So you can stack these and group them together in many, many different ways. So some of the ways that I've seen people use albums are, let's say for one of their kids, and they want to have an album for all their favorite pictures of their son. And then within that, they can have an album for the first birthday, second birthday, third birthday, later on down the line, their graduation, their wedding, and they can group all of these things together in a way that makes sense to them. If you're a working photographer, you might have one for a top level album for all your portrait clients, and inside that one for each family that you've done portraits for. Many, many, many different ways that you can use albums. And what's cool about it is it doesn't physically move anything in your hard drive. The things in your folders stay put, and you can put them into as many albums as you want. So albums are super powerful for getting things organized and helping you find things. So now that we're here at folders, let's add some images. And I'm going to go up to that plus button, and I'm going to choose media accessible from this device. If I scroll down to this Mylio Pics drive, you'll see I have a folder here called My Amazing Photos. And I want to bring these into my Mylio library. So I'm going to choose open, and I've got a few options here. Now, if you're, again, like a Lightroom user, or you're using another application that also views those folders, you probably don't want to move them from where they are. In that case, you'll want to choose link, and that leaves those files exactly where they're located, and Mylio can watch them. And if you have another program like Lightroom that's watching them, it doesn't move them anywhere. If you're looking to consolidate your library and organize things and bring things into a central location, let's say you have images, on this hard drive over here, and you have some over this on this hard drive, and you want to bring them all into a central location and get them organized, copy and move might be a better choice. For right now, I'm going to use link, and that leaves them where they're located. I'll choose link now, and we'll give that a moment to add. So it's added my folder. Go ahead and close that and give it a moment here to populate. So I'm going to go over here to all photos. It's just taking its sweet time here. There it goes. You can see its activities, that little activity monitor's moving now. There we go. There, it brought it in down here. So now I have all these images, and as it's going through, if we go over to the sync panel here on the right and into activity, you'll see the different things that Mylio is doing. So initial import, it can be very time consuming and it can use up a lot of system resources because it's generating thumbnails and smart previews. Once that's done, it's going to start scanning these photos for faces, and it's syncing them to any attached storage devices. So earlier we added that empty folder on that external drive. If we go over to the dashboard and take a look, we have our Mylio Vault, which is going to hold a copy of everything. This is going to be kind of like a backup. And then our originals here on the Mylio Pics drive. And you can see things are syncing here to this computer. So there's a lot going on when you first bring in photos. So if you have a really large library, I encourage you to bring things in small chunks. Otherwise, it's going to kind of, eat up all your system resources, and it might really slow down your computer for a little while. Once you get everything in, Mylio Photos works remarkably fast. So bringing in smaller chunks of photos, very, very quick. I can go out and do a photo shoot, come back with 500 pictures on a memory card, load those in, and in a matter of minutes, I'm up and running and doing whatever I need to do with those pictures. So smaller imports, not a big deal. If you're bringing in 40, 50,000 pictures, it can take a while. And we have people using Mylio Photos that have well over 2 million pictures. So the largest libraries are not a problem. So let's take a look here at some of these questions. Marco says, I'm not able to open Mylio on my iPhone or iPad. I plan to get the new iPhone 14 Pro. What should I do? Marcos, what I would probably do, let's see here, if you're not able to open it, I would uninstall the app on your phone and reinstall it and see if that helps. That would be my first suggestion. The next thing I would do is reach out to our support team at support@mylio.com, and they should be able to help you out, troubleshoot what's going on with that. The new iPhone 14 Pro, I would, again, wait until you have things running decently on your old phone. So that way, when your old phone backs up, it can transfer over very easily and quickly to the new one. And you're going to love the new iPhone 14. It's pretty fantastic. Let's see here. Mark says, if you want it really precise, you can just snap a photo with your phone, then copy and paste from your photos into Mylio. Yes, you can do that. All right. And oh, that was about GPS. Got it. Mark, you can unmute and add your comments as well. All right.
I typed so slow that you were already moving on to something else, and I looked back at it and thought that doesn't make sense anymore.
Oh, that's funny. It happens. Lucia says, how many vaults should you have? That is an excellent question. So what we recommend is using a 3-2-1 backup strategy. So you want to have 3 copies of your media. And what that means is you have your one working copy, you have a backup, so a complete copy of your originals, and then you have a third copy that's kept off-site. So different people have different setups. For Mylio Photos, what that can mean is you have your working copy at home, you have a second vault, so you have 2 vaults, ideally at your home or your office, and then you have a third vault off-site. So whether that's connected to a computer at your mom's house, or that's a cloud service, or some other off-site option, that's the best case scenario. What it looks like for me is I actually only have 1 vault for my personal library. So I have my Mylio Photos connected to that single vault, but then I use the Mac Time Machine that backs up my entire computer and all of my connected drives. So that's my second backup, my second location here at home. And then I use a service called Backblaze, which is a paid service that does online cloud backup. And again, backs up my computer and all of my connected drives to the cloud. So that's my third offsite copy. Depending on what you have, you want to make sure you have at least those 3 copies. So you're 2 local and you're 1 offsite. So that's my best suggestion for that, Lucia. All right. So let me go ahead and jump back over to the presentation, make sure I didn't miss anything. We walked through Mylio Photos. Let's need to point out a couple of other things. I know I briefly mentioned the More menu over here at the top right. The other thing you're going to want to pay attention to is the settings. And this gets you to all of the main settings inside Mylio Photos. And if we go back to, like, say, the All Photos view, you'll notice we have another menu down here in the bottom right. And this is called the Actions menu. You'll get this same menu if you right click on an image. So if I go up here to this image and I right click on it, you'll see you get the same menu. So there's a lot of options here as well. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. You can close and open this details panel on the right if you want to hide it. And make sure you pay attention to the sync panel. Lots of great information here about your devices and what's going on inside Mylio Photos at any given time. And let's go ahead and jump back over here, see what else we've got. So we talked about adding photos. And the next thing you're going to want to do is start syncing all of those photos you've added to all of your devices. It's very, very simple. All you have to do is install the Mylio Photos application on your other devices, sign in with your account, and that sync will start automatically. If it's the first time you've installed it on your phone, it's going to ask you, do you want to import the pictures that are on that phone? For most people, you're going to go ahead and say yes, that's the default setting, but you can skip it and go back and add it later if you want to. You can install our software on Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. Works great on phones, tablets, computers, lots of flexibility. So, and if you have a mixed infrastructure, so let's say you have a Windows computer and an iPhone, or a Mac and an Android phone, it works beautifully. That's one way you can have all of your pictures accessible on all of your devices. You know, you can do that easily with Apple Photos if you have, you know, a Mac and an iPad and an iPhone, you can get to all your stuff. But if you have a mixed infrastructure house, you know, this makes it really easy for everybody to be able to get to those photos that have the Mylio Photos application installed. All right, David has a question. Does anybody use Amazon Prime Photo Storage for backup offsite? David, I do. Now, the one caveat on using Amazon Drive is they are sunsetting that program at the end of either this year or next. I'd have to double check. Unfortunately, it's going away. I do currently use it. It works great, but it's not going to be around much longer, unfortunately. We are working on finding an alternative. We've got some stuff in the works. Otherwise, we do work with Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive. So that's a great question. And iCloud storage and all the photos go there and backup for share on other devices. Unfortunately, well, so not unfortunately, but we don't work currently. We don't connect directly to iCloud storage for using that as an alternate vault. But if you keep your photos in Apple Photos and those are all backing up to iCloud, that does serve as another backup. The one thing with Apple Photos is you never really know where your pictures are, whether they're stored locally or in the cloud. They tend to move things around in a closed infrastructure where you don't know where things are. So that's why I do recommend, if you're using Mylio Photos, to go ahead and bring those images into Mylio as well. That way you know you have a copy of those images on your local devices that you control. There's been times where, if you need to download an image from iCloud, maybe you don't have internet connection, you can't get to it, but you would be able to get to it if you had it on your local drive. So something to take into consideration. All right, so we're wrapping up here. So if there's any last minute questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A or unmute. But we'll talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have available for you. If you want to scan this QR code that's up on the screen, this will take you to a link, a page that has all of these other links on it for you. So you don't have to write all of those other links down right now, but they are there if you want to get them. And I do encourage you to scan this QR code. The first place you're going to want to check for help is that in-app help menu. And I pointed that out briefly earlier. That's here in the upper right. Looks like a little question mark. And this is going to give you the how-to guide, which is the user manual. Access to the community. Troubleshooting takes you to our support forum. FAQs take you to, they're mostly like pre-sale questions, but like general information about Mylio Photos that you might have a question about. Adding or removing the sample library. Contacting our support team. And if you have a support question that you can't find the answer to in the manual or some other venue, please don't hesitate to reach out to support. And we do recommend, if possible, to do it through the app, because that gives us information about your installation and helps us better troubleshoot any problems you might have. Show support options on startup, provide some advanced options when you restart the software. Most often you're going to access those only by direction of somebody on the support team, but they're there if you need them. Same goes for console. If you're of a programming mentality or programming background, you might want to get into the console and try some of the advanced commands. You can find a lot of that here in the troubleshooting in our support forum. We have a lot of very technical people who hang out there and share a lot of different things they've learned about Mylio Photos. So if you're very technical and you want to get into some code stuff, you can play around with the console. And then About Mylio Photos just tells you a bit more about the software. So for direct links here, you can get to the product manual at manual.mylio.com. If you're just getting started, this quick start guide is wonderful. It actually covers a lot of what we covered today, but it goes more in depth on some of those topics and should take you about 45 minutes to get through. It's a series of short videos, and you can watch the ones that pertain to you. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Most of you already found our community, but it's a great place to hang out with other like-minded photographers and people who enjoy their photos. And you'll also find a lot of us from the Mylio Photos team there. We share our photos, our experiences, and we're there to help out. Inside the community, we have a full-length fundamentals course, which dives into using Mylio Photos more deep than the quick start guide. It gives you a ton of information. Again, it's broken into short modules where you can visit the ones that make the most sense to you, that you want to learn more about, or you can go start to finish and learn the whole thing and be a Mylio Photos expert. We mentioned the support forum, the FAQs, how to contact support. So lots of resources to help you be successful. But if you have any other questions, you guys are always willing. I'm tripping over my words. I've been talking for too long. You guys can always contact me via the forum and via the community. In the community, if you just click on my profile picture on any post that I've made, you can get to the option to send me a DM. You can also comment on any of those posts that I make. And you can reach me at angela@mylio.com as well. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for the end of the day? All right. Well, I want to thank you guys all for being here today and for sticking through this, especially those who have a great deal of knowledge in Mylio Photos already, and for helping out other users. Appreciate that so much. The one thing I want to leave you with, the one thought, is that Mylio Photos is a big program. And if you're just getting started, it can feel very overwhelming. And I want to encourage you to take it in baby steps. Bring in a few photos at a time and work with the aspects of the program that make the most sense to you. So if you're someone who wants to just browse things by the calendar because you like that view, explore the calendar, get in there and find things and add dates to some of your old pictures. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you take a lot of pictures of your family, your kids, your grandkids, check out the people view. It's almost like a video game. As you go through and start adding those tags, you're going to become a little bit obsessed with making sure all of the faces in your library have names, and it's a lot of fun. But pick the areas that make sense to you. If you don't want to organize with albums, don't feel like you have to use it. So there's a lot of tools there, and they're meant to be appealing to a wide variety of people, not that you have to use them all. So just want to leave that with you and hope that you enjoy the program. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. We want you to be successful, and I will wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, and we'll see you next time.